We'd like to welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, News Before the News, where we uncover the truth here with the one and only Gary Ellerbe to discuss the passing of Ethel Ennis and that history that comes with it. How you doing? The one and only Gary Ellerbe, Baltimore internationally renowned jazz aficionado.
Yeah, it goes Donnie Glover again. What's up? How you doing, bro?
We grateful, man. We got a lot of history, and let me just say, I do not own the rights to this music. A lot of history here, Mr. Ellerbe.
Well, welcome to my time tunnel, bro.
Okay.
If the newest and the latest in music is what you're looking for, this is not the basement for you. All right, we got the masters down here. Over my right shoulder, that's the man we call Pops. That's pretty much who started it all. The great Louis Daniel.
He started it all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the trendsetter. He was the pace setter. He was the one that set the bar. On my left, you'll see a picture of my girl, the great Ethel Ennis.
And it's this didn't just go up here today.
No, it didn't. Ethel gave me that around 1993, 94. She was working on her last two albums when we got to hang together and spend some time together. And that's one of the things she blessed me with.
By the way, who's this playing?
Ethel Ennis.
Okay.
That's her next to last CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she's got Steph Gazzari on there playing piano. Steph's out of Annapolis.
Okay. Who was she to Baltimore?
Ethel was...
And to the jazz world overall?
Ethel was the picture of what is possible with focus, dedication, commitment, and hard work. Her and her brother Andy Ennis started piano lessons at an early age. Ethel continued with...
Here in Baltimore?
Yeah. Ethel continued with piano and vocals, and Andy moved on to tenor saxophone. Ethel started performing in various clubs in Baltimore, probably on Pennsylvania Avenue, because she was born, I think, November the 28th, 1934. So she was coming of age in the 50s. And that's when they started singing and hanging out. She got little gigs here and there. She would enter the various contests, amateur contests around the state. They had one that used to run on WMAR Channel 2. She won that. She won an opportunity to appear on a national television show called the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. She won that. Around 1958, she was presented with an opportunity to join Benny Goodman's orchestra. Keep in mind, Benny Goodman was the first European to have an integrated band in that he hired Lionel Hampton and Teddy Charles. Ethel toured with Benny through Europe his first time over. When she came back, she embarked on her solo career, and she was responsible for her own musicians, their pay, and the music that she was going to perform.
Some of her greatest hits.
Close Your Eyes. Have You... Lullaby of Love. Have You Forgotten the Loneliness? And a couple others that I can't think of off the top of my head. I may have even messed up one or two of those titles. I don't have a lot of recordings by Ethel. I have her last CD. The one that I really fell in love with on that one was a song called If Women Ruled the World.
Why?
It showed the possibilities, and it showed basically what is actually happening in the world. Look around and The men have done such a horrible job of running this planet that it's only logical that women should get a chance to do it. They basically run the house anyway. I've lived long enough to learn that a woman gets the last word in any argument. Anything a man says after that is the beginning of another argument.
Ethel had a club here in Baltimore.
Ethel had a club down on Cathedral Street, right across the street from Meyerhoff Symphony Hall, and it was called Ethel's Place. She specialized in bringing international artists to Baltimore to perform for a Baltimore crowd. She had Carmen McRae, she had Phyllis Hyman, she had Joe Williams. The only recording that I have myself is Gary Bartz live at Ethel's Place with international vocalist Leon Thomas. Another Baltimore cat is on there, and that Bob Buddha was the pianist for that occasion. After Ethel closed the club, Blues Alley tried to make a run with it. But the problem with a club like Blues Alley in Baltimore is that Baltimore is a blues town. That means they are nickel and dime town. They expect change back for the dollar. When Blues Alley came in, they wanted to charge $40 for one show. Baltimore had been spoiled by some of the best musicians in the world performing at clubs like the Birdcage, the Arlington Restaurant and Lounge, the Sportsman's Lounge, the Cotton Club. We go to these clubs, we went to these clubs for free, no admission, and most of them would even give you free food to have the audience in there. Baltimore wasn't ready for a Blues Alley type situation. When you get a club like that, in order to make money, you really do have to empty the house out after each show so you can get a fresh audience and paying customers.
It would do better in a Washington, D.C.
It would do much better in Washington, D.C. because first off, the medium income of the residents is higher, and then you have a larger population to draw from. Baltimore, straight ahead jazz or mainstream jazz is an acquired taste. In order to acquire that taste, you have to live a little longer, experience a little more, and then you just have to be willing to sit down and listen. Many people don't listen to music to understand it and to hear it. They listen to music to dance or for background music. Mm-hmm. Jazz is a music that allows you to think. It encourages you to think, and it stimulates the thought process in you.
Mm-hmm. This is Black History Month, and of course, I'm into Black history all the time.
That's Cab Calloway outside of an orphanage he visited here in Baltimore.
What a classic.
Yeah, that's Camay's dad.
You are a part of Baltimore jazz history. You've interviewed everybody.
A few, quite a few.
Who haven't you interviewed?
I didn't get to meet or interview Miles Davis. I didn't get to meet or interview McCoy Tyner. I didn't get to meet or interview Sun Ra. I got to meet John Coltrane, but I didn't know I was meeting John Coltrane. I was living in Harlem in the 60s and 70s, and there was a pool hall I used to go to. John Coltrane used to go in there and practice his saxophone.
Mm-hmm. Other greats in Baltimore. Earlier in our quote-unquote pre-interview, Dennis Chambers' name came up.
Dennis Chambers is a legend.
Greatest drummer in the world.
Yeah, the guy that came by to do an interview with me for one of the local TV stations had a cameraman with him, and the cameraman not only didn't he know who Ethel Ennis was, he didn't know who Dennis Chambers was. So I said, okay, watch this. I said, you ever listen to Funkadelic? He go, who? I said, okay, you got homework to do. I said, Funkadelic Parliament is
One
probably,
nation
yeah,
under a groove.
it's probably one of the funkiest bands to ever exist. Dennis Chambers played drums for them. How good of a musician do you have to be to leave a show where you're playing with Funkadelic, trying to tear the roof off the sucker, to go into a place like the King of France Tavern and playing brushes on the drums behind Ethel Ennis?
And so I've learned today that the King of France restaurant was or is in Annapolis.
It's in Annapolis,
And it's
and it was a jazz club. The first time I ever went in there, my ears got blown back because they had the Count Basie Orchestra crammed in there. And that power was hitting you at the front door.
and this is a venue in which the history goes back to 1700s, I understand.
Yep.
In Annapolis.
Yep.
So Kunta Kinte and Alex Haley and all of that comes to mind.
They was on the grounds before there was a King of France.
Okay, what else can we share during this Black History Month and this tribute to the life of the one and only Ethel Ennis from Jazz Aficionado? You made WEAA in with respect to the history, and I know there was another guy over there. I want to say Doc Manning, but I know you to be the history man.
We had a couple we had Doc Manning, we had Bill Harvey, the Magic Bird, we had Mr. Versatility, who did blues and oldies R&B and booked some jazz shows here in Baltimore with Big Jim. Big Jim used to be president of the Arts Social Club.
I did not know that.
And he booked talent like Jimmy McGriff and Hank Crawford to perform there. He booked Irene Reed and Charlie Erlin to perform there. He brought Winston Walls up, another organist out of West Virginia. He brought Carlos Johnson and all of those local bands in there to play. Yeah, Big Jim. And then the lady that I give a lot of credit to for me being able to do jazz radio and to be able to do a halfway decent job was another legend out of Baltimore, a young lady by the name of Jackie Lanier. Jackie's house was a Black history museum. She had all of the racial history of Baltimore and Black people in America. All of the old figurines and comic books and action figures that were made for toys for kids and all. She had all of that. She had the documentation of what went on during the Civil War, after the Civil War, the whole civil rights struggle she covered. So yeah, I had a lot of help. And then we got to give credit to the two men that actually started WEAA. One was the first news director there, who was Larry Dean, and the next was the first program director, who was Kwesi Mfume, before he became a city councilman in Baltimore City. Kwesi is the reason that we have Neil Matai on WEAA with the Caribbean Affair, and Kwesi was the reason that Mother Mary Carter Smith had a talk show on WEAA every Saturday morning. This picture on my left shoulder is of Linda Gross. Linda Gross and Mary Carter Smith started the National Griot Circle.
Mm-hmm.
That's Earl Arnett. They started the National Griot Circle. That was a time when they got me to MC their event. And that's Oscar Brown Jr. out of Chicago, the man who sang That There and Signifying Monkey. We honored him that year. So Mary Carter Smith afforded me the opportunity to meet Oscar Brown Jr., who was a hero of mine from the 60s when I first heard his music.
Now on the phone, that was Ethel's husband.
That was Earl calling.
Okay, so well, we don't want to hold you, but I gotta ask you just a little bit more. Uh, on this day that we celebrate the life and contributions of an Ethel Ennis, to a person who is you've helped educate so many of us over the years. Did we even start at the beginning of what is jazz? You gave me a definition years ago that I will never forget.
Jazz for me is the explosion that occurred in music when Black Americans got their hands on European instruments. It all started with chants, grunts, stomps, hand claps, work songs, and church services. Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin are classic examples of how the sound of the church music was pulled into the music world, and it was pulled in through jazz first.
Mm-hmm.
Jazz is the music that has given birth to every other music that has come since. Doo-wops, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, soul. Jazz has played a part in everything, even pop music, because the guys will experiment with a sound in jazz and then they'll take it to the other gigs that they're doing. My transition from R&B to jazz was easy because I found out that the musicians that I was listening to behind the artists that were singing were all jazz musicians. They were playing R&B and whatnot to take care of their family.
That paid the bills.
That paid the bills, but jazz fed the soul.
But didn't you not tell me that jazz is African American classical music?
Absolutely. Remember, what did I just say? The explosion that occurred in the music industry when Black musicians got their hands on European instruments. I think it was George Gershwin of George and Ira Gershwin fame that said, we had no idea how good our music was until these Black jazz musicians got a hold of it.
Well, you know, Mr. Ellerbe, I have to interject. Wasn't Ludwig van Beethoven a Black man?
Yes.
And there were others?
Probably.
That played classical music better than any European of...
Nina Simone was classically trained. Dr. Nina Simone was classically trained. And I had to put that doctor on there because I got to meet her before she transitioned. And she was very proud of that doctoralship that she earned.
What else would you like to share with us, Mr. Jazz Aficionado, on an otherwise solemn occasion?
In her later years, after she stopped traveling so much, she made sure that she was home in Baltimore, just 2 blocks away from Mondawmin, within 2 miles of where she and Andy originally started life at. And she worked tirelessly with her community. There's a young man who's out here today playing jazz. He's a drummer who graduated from Frederick Douglass High School in the 90s. And he was telling me just the other day how one of the times that I came down to Frederick Douglass to MC a jazz show, it was Ethel Ennis who was performing free of charge to help Douglass raise some money for the students. And, this young man was one of the students that got a scholarship because of Ethel's efforts.
You know, on that note, I have to point out there are a lot of white people who support jazz in ways that African Americans do not.
Oh, man, it's amazing. I didn't realize it.
Portland Jazz Festival comes to mind. I have a best friend that lives in Portland, Oregon, and he tells me how the white folks truly embrace jazz, and if it weren't for them, It may be a very uncelebrated art form.
They got the Berks Jazz Festival going on this weekend coming up, I think. And then there's always up in Pennsylvania, up in Harrisburg, there's an organization that's patterned after the Left Bank Jazz Society in Baltimore. It's called Central Pennsylvania Friends of Jazz.
What happened? What happened to our appreciation of our own art form? Is it like the hair care industry, although started by the likes of Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker, is now dominated by Asians?
Who took over the music industry?
I have my thoughts, but let me hear your answer.
It wasn't people of color.
Oh, okay. A lot of black people made records but died broke.
Who took the musical instruments out of public schools in the inner city? It was not people of color.
Yeah, I grew up in elementary school. You know where I grew up, Matthew Ensign. We had an orchestra.
But if you go to, that was then.
Yeah, it was in the 70s.
If you go to our schools now, if they have
they might have a piano.
Yeah, if they have a music program, the students are playing with borrowed instruments.
What's that about? Who took gym? You know, climbing the rope. Remember climbing the rope to the top, or your music programs, or I mean, even basic sports. What happened? What happened, Mr. Ellerbe?
Black progress happened.
What?
Black progress happened.
That sounds like we're going backwards. It sounds like a digression. Doesn't sound like progression.
Well, it is what it is. When school budgets are cut in the inner city, the first thing to go are the arts.
And the first thing to go up is the prison population.
The arts leave for a reason.
Yeah, leave them without culture, let them kill each other. Let them go insane, no expression.
You look at black music over the years, there was always a message in the music.
What about nowadays?
They took over the music to stop that message, I believe.
Because I
when Obama became president, did you see how they cut Pell Grants and scholarships? That's because they don't want another Obama. People realize that when you get a child to study music, those lessons that he learned in studying that music carry over to every other subject he studies for the rest of their life. They learn how to budget their time so that they have time to practice. They learn how to count because music is mostly counting. You're counting the time. They learn how their small piece of music fits in to the whole orchestra piece. They learn teamwork. They learn camaraderie. They learn that they don't have time for those bad habits because the music is so focused demanding that they don't have time for their mind to wander to become those empty hands that people say are the devil's workshop.
We didn't mention in this entire dialogue Cyrus Chestnut, another Baltimore great.
Had the privilege. We had a birthday party for Ethel on her 80th birthday down at Andi Music down on Charles Street in back of the Basilica. Henry Wong was gracious enough to put the place up for us, and we had Ethel Ennis and Cyrus Chestnut together.
Wow.
That was a night.
Chick Webb, he came from Baltimore.
One of the greatest drummers the world has ever seen.
Did you not tell me he founded Sarah?
No. He was the first one to hire Ella Fitzgerald.
Ella.
Yeah. Chick Webb is the one that took the drum from being a timekeeper to being out front in front of the band.
And this was the man that has scoliosis, curvature of the spine.
Yep.
They have a wreck named after him in East Baltimore.
That's where we went to. When we didn't go to the Y on Druid Hill Avenue to go swimming, we went to the Chick Webb Center.
And he was a very important part, according to what you taught me, of the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes, he was. His orchestra was holding court at the Savoy Ballroom, and that's where Langston Hughes and Maya Angelou and everybody went to hang out and to get their dance on Friday and Saturday night. Benny Goodman, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, anybody else's big band that was playing an engagement in New York for the weekend, when they finished their gigs, they would come uptown to Harlem, and that's when they would have what they called the Battle of the Bands. Your band would get up and play against Chick
Oh,
Corea's
so
band.
that's not a Southern marching band thing.
Nope. Ain't no marching. Dancing, Jack. Jazz was created to be dance music. I had people tell me I can't dance to that. If you can't dance to that, you can't dance. I should be able to put on Miles Davis doing the song he wrote for his wife, Frances Taylor, called Fran Dance. You ought to be able to dance to that. It ain't nothing but a waltz. People don't know how to waltz. They miss those old debutante and escort cotillions that we used to go to as youth.
I've only saw pictures.
Oh, man. I got to New York. They put me in several of them. They made sure we knew how to waltz and how to wear tucks and tails. Of course, we went overboard. We wanted to get top hats and canes and white gloves. A couple of times, a couple of us even went and got some white spats to put on. We were playing the part. Work for Fred Astaire or work for me.
Did you play an instrument? Do you play?
My mother made me study piano for a few years. She was trying to.
You say that like that was a burden.
I wasn't ready for it. I didn't appreciate what she was doing, and I really didn't appreciate the skills that I had. I had a talent for playing the piano. My mother used to talk about people love to watch my fat fingers dance on the keyboard.
How about now?
I specialize in playing records, bro.
No. You appreciate the piano?
Oh, I love the piano.
That experience that mom's afforded you?
Absolutely. Some of my best friends are piano players. Charles Covington, the late great John Hicks out of New York City and out of Georgia.
And Donnie Glover.
You play piano, Donnie?
Since I was 7 years old.
We're going to have to work on this.
What else? How can people get in touch with you, the one and only Gary Ellerbe? Hey, look, we barely touched the surface, and it's 28 minutes. So I don't want to steal too much. Maybe this is the beginning of many more to come. But any final thoughts? How can people get in touch with you, the one and only Baltimore world-renowned jazz aficionado, Mr. Gary Ellerbe, my big brother?
I'm about the easiest person in the world to find because I'm home most of the time. So anybody knows me, knows where I live at. Most people don't need an invitation. Just call and see if I'm around and come in the house with a bottle or a bag.
Okay.
And everybody else, you can find my opinionated self on Facebook. Old age may have slowed me down, but it hasn't shut me up.
We love you. And thank you for the education, the one and only Mr. Gary Ellerbe.
Thanks, Donnie. Love you, bro.
Good deal. Keep watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.